Hi, everyone. I'm Vincent Joe.
Hi, I'm Kathy Reed.
And I'm Allison Reed.
Hi, I'm Ashley.
Hi, I'm Grace.
We're from the Haydenettes.
I am Mark Henretti.
Ciao a tutti, siamo Rebecca Ghirardi
e Filippo Ambrosini
e vi diamo il benvenuto a
This Week in Skating.
Welcome to This Week in Skating, the weekly podcast bringing you the latest news from the world of figure skating. Here are your hosts, Daphne, Gina, and Matteo.
And we're back. Cup of China wrapped up this weekend, and here to help us break it down is our friend and fellow journalist, Lynn Rutherford. Welcome back to This Week in Skating, Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Now, you weren't in China, but you did watch the event from home, and you said you watched it twice, right?
I did. Cup of existential angst, as I call it. Yes, I did watch it. So, got a lot of thoughts, and I'm ready to share them.
Excellent. So, all right, Gina, want to lead us into the women?
Yeah, we'll start with the women, Lynn. What were some of your thoughts? We know it was close after the short program with Alyssa Liu being the leader, but it was Amber Glenn that took home the gold. Then Alyssa took silver and Rinka Watanabe took the bronze. So what were your thoughts on the event?
Well, the overwhelming thought that I have is, Amber looks really ready for the season and very fit as she has been the last few seasons, very prepared. Programs are working on almost all cylinders. And, just really made an impressive first Grand Prix. I would make a case that she was even a little undermarked. And, so here I am, and I always discourage this, but, playing, kind of easy chair caller or easy chair judge. I'm sitting here watching it stream on Peacock, and I've got all these thoughts. But her triple axel, for example, in the free, I thought was superb. And I really think that the judges are really a little conservative when it comes to handing out the GOEs for triple axels. And I think with Amber, I think she got a 1.83 GOE. I think it could have been more. I think she could have had 3 and 4s on that axle.
Yeah, I agree with you on that too, Lynn.
The other thing is, I think with Amber occasionally, her PCS is a little undervalued. Not all the time, but occasionally. And I thought perhaps she could have been a little stronger there as well. So that's kind of my take on it, because the scores for Amber, for example, were a bit under the scores for the Japanese women. Certainly the winner last weekend in France. Yet I thought Amber was very impressive.
I love that short program from her. It really is entertaining, and I think it suits her very well. And then her free skate is from last year, and she's got a new dress this year. It's a blue dress, but I think she is looking the best. She had some issues a little bit with the triple combination in both, but I still think she's looking really good right now.
I would echo that. And, really, I think she had, quite a gap between the young Japanese, and I may be mispronouncing her name, Aoki, from France. And, while I understand that somewhat, Amber, I believe, missed a spin level in her free skate as well, which she can't afford to do. I thought they could have been a little bit closer, and her marks her PCS were running about 66 and a half. I thought she could have been a little higher. So that's my my educated critique, yet very very much a armchair caller here.
I think we're all armchair callers.
Right. Amber seems to have things well in hand. Now, moving on to Alyssa Liu, I was very happy with her programs as well. It's interesting that, of course, she's gone back to both of her free skates from last season after coming out with new, both of her programs from last season, a free skate and a short, after, showing a new free skate to Lady Gaga. And I think going back to the short from last season is a good move, and a move that's not going to hurt her in the least, because that's the Laufey program, I believe, that the singer from Iceland. That program is kind of a magic program for her. Everyone loved it. And her new short program was really in the same vein. And I don't think it hurts at all to go back to last season's short program. Now, I think it's a bit different story with the free. She used MacArthur Park for this event. I guess her team wants to sort of rework the Lady Gaga. And I think that's smart, as long as they do bring the Lady Gaga back. I think that, MacArthur Park had its moment in Boston. And I think for the Olympics, she needs something new. So I'm anxious to see the re-debut of the Lady Gaga program.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to recreate a moment with a program like she had in Boston. And so I'm hoping we see this Lady Gaga program. I'm wondering if we'll see it by Skate America, or if we're not going to see it until maybe the final or nationals. But yeah, I think she needs to bring it back. I don't think she can go doing 2 programs from last season.
I agree. The other thing with Alyssa, and I discovered this during an interview I had with her during the off season, she really does things her own way. And I think that she took, a number of weeks off during the off season, much of June, much of July, and ramped up her training in August. And she really said, I need my time off. I know what I need. And with a skater like that, her programs are only going to get stronger, I believe, as the season goes on. And you can't really criticize that, because that's Alyssa's way. And, it worked last season. So I expect to see her getting stronger, as the Olympics approach.
I'd agree with that. I think it's easy to have expectations that everyone's going to come out like gangbusters at the beginning of the season, especially by the time of the Grand Prix. But every skater, they're on a different road or trajectory, and what works for one might not work for another. And I think Alyssa has determined this is what works for her. She knows, as you said, Lynn, she knows what she needs, and she's following it.
I consider the U.S. women, and I'm going to throw Isabeau, who skated last weekend, into that. All 3 of them have made very creditable starts to the season. And I think Amber's probably in tip-top shape, and the other 2 are kind of still nipping at her heels. But there's certainly time to make adjustments, to get mileage, and to build stamina. So I would say they're in very good shape. Now, another point that came up, I think, watching Cup of China is this real, group of Japanese women that are going to be fighting for 3 spots at the Olympics. And I'm thinking there's about 7 of them that could reasonably compete for 3 spots. I mean, some of them certainly have a better chance than others. But I think, we just see that kind of every weekend with these events that, there's just a embarrassment of riches in the Japanese women's lineup.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it is likely, like you said, Lynn, going to come down to 7 women, but it's going to be really intensely competitive. I think, will they go by just what happens at Japanese nationals, or will they look at this entire season?
Well, my understanding, and we can certainly get some corrections if I'm wrong, is that the winner of the Japanese nationals will get an Olympic spot, the winner. But other than that, they can consider any number of factors. So, I mean, just off the beginning of the season, off the top of my head, what I've seen so far, what happened last season, I would say Sakamoto and Monoshiba are really good bets. But there's a group of about 4 or 5 women, including this up and coming Aoki, who really are going to make strong bids. So, I've even talked to some people that don't think Sakamoto's a lock. I kind of think she is, but it's just a real kind of a good problem to have, but a problem nevertheless. And again with Rinka at the event in China, I think she had a few mistakes there in the free skate that as a Japanese woman, she's not going to be able to afford at nationals, even though she won the bronze here.
Yeah, because actually I was sort of surprised to see her in the mix, for a medal, because there was Hana Yoshida also competing, who did not do well at all. But yeah, she's got to, with that field of Japanese women, she has to skate better, even though she medaled here, if she wants an Olympic spot. But she surprised me this weekend, because I don't think I had her in the mix for a medal.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, now that you've mentioned the Korean women, well, I was very grateful for one thing with Hana, in that she and Mishigi ditched for good, that short program that they had done earlier in the season to probably the worst rendition of My Way that I've ever heard. I believe it was a kind of a reality show version of My Way, the Paul Anka penned hit for Frank Sinatra, and just screeching and really nerve shattering. So I'm glad that they dumped that program, it appears, and went with this new program, Sirens. She also evidently ditched her Carmen program and is now doing Notre Dame de Paris. So she's been real busy. So there are a lot of, changes afoot going on there with her. And, the Korean ladies, they really haven't set the world on fire yet this season. They've kind of had a rough start to the season. But Jia Shin, I believe, has been the leader thus far. And, is making a case for one of the 2 spots at the Olympics so far. But that remains to be seen.
She did back-to-back Grand Prix, and she was better in China than she was in France.
She was. But, you got to compare her to the other Korean women. And thus far, I would say she's, been the most consistent of the group. But, overall, they've been a little disappointing. And, really, those are the highlights of the women's competition, as I see it.
Yeah, you had pretty much everything that I had written down here for the women's event. Yeah, you had everything that I said and had for highlights too. So that was my take on it. And kudos to Amber, because I think she's she's really in good shape for this Olympic season. All right, then we want to move on to the men. So for the men, just a quick recap. Gold was won by Shun Sato of Japan. Silver was Daniel Grossel of Italy. Bronze was Mikhail Shudorov of Kazakhstan. So, Lynn, what are your thoughts on this men's event?
Oh, I got a lot of thoughts on the men's event. Let me talk about the American men first. I have been watching Tomoki Hawatashi, as everyone has, for many years. I have never seen him skate this well. Never.
Agreed. Agreed.
I just think that he really improved every aspect of his skating. Spins might need a little work, but okay. And he landed 2 quad toes, one of course in combination with the triple toe. His triple axels were just fine, and he just looked very comfortable. I was incredibly impressed with him. Honestly, he was really not on my radar. But a friend had kind of texted me, do you think he's kind of putting himself in the conversation for an Olympic spot? And at first I thought, oh, I don't know. But now I'm thinking, if he can keep this up, yeah, maybe.
That's what I was thinking this weekend.
I've never seen him skate like this. And maybe the move to Japan is bearing fruit now. The training in Japan, I believe maybe that's just bearing fruit now. But that was wonderful to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And he competes this week at Skate Canada. So we'll see how he does here.
That's tough. He's got the back-to-back. So those are, kind of my thoughts on the U.S. men. Now, in terms of the medalists, I thought it was a very interesting competition. Again, I thought Shun Sato skated as well as he's ever skated. And I talked to some Japanese journalists, and they feel like he's a guy that's sort of overlooked sometimes in Japan.
I would agree with that.
People have a sense that he's dull or not as exciting as some of the other Japanese men. But I thought he was just smooth as silk here. Excellent jumps. I don't know if the technical panel bothered to review any of his jumps. Very solid. Just really reeling off, his quads and triple axels like they were nothing. And I think he made a strong case for himself. And how did you feel about him? I mean, had you ever seen him skate that well before?
No, not that I can remember. And I wrote down in my notes here that was the best free skate of the event, in my opinion. And it was, he's skating to Firebird. It's been skated so many times before, but I thought he skated it very well. Yeah, and in my opinion, that was the best free skate, other than maybe Tomoki. But yeah, the best free skate, and I do agree with what you're saying about that he's kind of under the radar. I feel like he's sometimes in the shadow of Yuma Kageyama. That everyone pays attention to Yuma, but that Shun kind of is like there's not a lot of attention given to him. And I think when he skates well, he's a really good skater to watch. And he's hopefully making a name for himself with this event, and he skates next and home in Japan, so see what he does there.
The other thing I'll say, and shame on me, I do not remember his name, but his coach had the most effusive reaction in the kiss and cry that I can ever remember. But this young coach was just thrilled for Shun Sato. So it really was kind of nice to see, and kind of happy. It makes you happy to see something like that come together.
I think that was Tadeo Kusaka.
Okay, well, he was just thrilled. I mean, I thought, whoa, he was happier than Shun Sato, that's for sure.
I think Shun Sato put like a towel over his head.
He did. I like when stuff like that happens. When you're not expecting a result like that, the reaction it's more authentic, especially when it comes up like that. I like seeing the passion and excitement that comes from that surprise.
Now, here's where my thoughts may diverge with other people's. I don't tend to share what I'm going to call the Grassel hate that I see, on Twitter or X, right? I thought Conclave was an excellent program, certainly, of course, from Benoit Richard, that masked Grassel's shortcomings and emphasized his strengths. I really didn't see, on the replays, I think, the calling was generally fair. They might have let one cue go, but I thought it was, top notch for him. And I think he's underrated as a spinner. So honestly, I don't have any problem with Grassel's silver medal here. How do you feel?
I don't have any issue with the silver medal. I kind of need to see this program again a little bit. I didn't think it was a horrible program, but I kind of want to see it a little bit more to get like a more of a judgment on it. I think this was my first time really seeing it, and I don't know if he's performing, because the music is kind of dramatic there at the beginning, and I don't know if he's kind of performing like up with it. I mean, no, I thought, if you're just watching it, you don't realize maybe the under rotations and then you see the results and you're like, oh yeah, he was under rotated there, or on that jump. Because at first I was like, I thought he skated it really well, and then you go back and I'm like, oh, that was under rotated. He got an under rotation on that. And so sometimes, like, when you're just watching it there, you don't pay attention as closely. I'm not Jackie who can spot an under rotation so quickly. Some you can, but like others, it's, especially when they're called a cue, I can't see it that closely. So I thought at first, I was like, oh, he did really well. I'm still like, I don't know how I feel about the program. But then when the scores came up and you look at the protocols and you're like, oh, he did get dinged for quite a bit.
Well, he certainly did a very good quad loop.
Yeah. And Lutz.
The triple, hey, that might have had a cue on it that maybe wasn't called. But I really didn't think there was anything too off about the calling with him. And I thought that he improved his performance quality a bit, and I really think he improved his spins. But I appear to be, in the minority. So that's my Daniel Grasswell analysis.
Well, we'll get to see that program in person, right, Lynn, in Skate America?
That's true. Yes, that is right. That is true. And the other interesting thing is we will see Shiderov in Lake Placid, and I'm not sure what's going on there because I have a suspicion, and I can be wrong a lot. But I wonder if judges and the community in general is maybe going to have a little bit of a backlash on Shiderov after his, big success coming in second to Malinin last season. Because this was not his best performance by any means. He made a number of mistakes, but he was also hit a little bit harder on the calls than maybe he would have been last season. And certainly he did not attain the spin levels that he would have wanted. I don't know. I thought certainly it's the beginning of the season. There's time to improve, but this was not a brilliant start, for Shiderov. And I think people are taking a very close look at his jumps. Are they fully rotated? Are they pre-rotated? I don't think they are. Some people do. And I've also heard a lot of sort of chit chat about his lack of edges, his poor edges, just really shallow edges on his footwork. So I'm wondering if we're going to see a Shiderov sort of backlash. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right that they're kind of watching him a little bit more now that he's, the world silver medalist. They're kind of paying closer attention to him and catching him on these things like the edges. I mean, the flips were considered not even clear edges, too, in the protocols. So I think they're really watching him.
He got the warning on the flips.
There's something to be said for, okay, you've medaled at the World Championships. Now we expect more from you. And so we're not going to let you get away with these little mistakes anymore. You have to bring it. You've got to up your level to continue to be in that position.
On the other hand, if his flips merited a warning now, they probably merited a warning in Boston. His edges certainly, he got a level 2 on his steps here. I don't know. I don't know if he took people by surprise last season or what, but I just have a feeling if this holds, this kind of analysis of his elements, he may be looking at a little bit of a rougher season.
Well, if you look at how he skated last season, he won a silver medal at Cup of China. He was 4th at his other Grand Prix event. So for him to be 3rd here, I'm not that concerned yet. I think we wait and see what happens at Skate America before I dig deeper into this. I mean, he started really strong.
I can't recall who his closest competition will be at Skate America.
Grassel.
Okay. Well, that's going to be interesting then. If it happens again, then they're going to have to take a look at what's going on. But yeah, so those were my major thoughts there. The other thought that I had, and perhaps I missed this, and one of you two can inform me. Certainly, it was good to see Boyang uh, competing in China, and he did a nice job, but I didn't see the quad lutz that he really pioneered and really made famous. Now, is he not doing it? Is that a jump that he's not doing right now because of injury, or do you quite know what happened there?
No, I have no clue. But yeah,
He's been injured so much, and we have to remember he's 28 years old. So it just may be that this isn't a jump he's doing anymore.
Interesting, because really that was his jump, for many years.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. It was just a brilliant quad lutz.
no, I thought he skated well. That it's this is a good confidence booster heading into Chinese nationals with the one Olympic spot on the line for them.
I think China assigns their Olympic spots to sentimental favorites. I don't think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna have a problem.
The last 2 seasons, Jin hasn't done anything outside of Grand Prix events and his nationals. Like, that's it. There's not a lot of competitive results to look at. It's been 10 years since he won the bronze at Worlds. So, yeah, you have to wonder if his body just isn't up to it, because he has had a number of injuries that have kept him out of competition. So,
well, he still had solid, not perfect, but solid skates here. So, there is that. But yeah, those are, basically my thoughts on the men.
Well, Daphne, do you want to run down the pairs quickly here for Lynn?
absolutely. So, the big storyline coming out of here, Wei Jingsui and Kong Han returned to competition for the first time since the Olympics in 2022. They did not win here. Gold went to Georgia's Anastasia Metelkina and Luca Barulova. Silver went to Italy's Sarah Conti and Niccolo Macchi. And bronze went to our 2022 Olympic champions, Wen Jingsui and Kong Han.
Yes. And what's interesting, of course, here was the return of, Shui and Han. And what they didn't do, which they were solid in some respects and not in others. I thought they were shaky on their lifts, as did many others. It appears that, from watching it and reviewing the rules, that they did not do a lasso lift in the short program. They rather did a hand-to-hand lift. And that's kind of shocking, because certainly that's a technical caller responsibility to sort of call them and say, hey, that's the wrong lift. And, you had your 3-person kind of technical panel, the controller and the 2 specialists. And, they were from, I believe, Canada and France and Croatia, and they just didn't call it. But overall, I thought their lifts were a little shaky. Side-by-side jumps a little shaky. On the other hand, excellent programs. I believe that this is their first event in their comeback, in their first international event. So let's give them some grace and, see how they can improve.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people were talking about the lifts. Even Chris Kinnear was vocal about it on Twitter, saying that was not the lasso lift, and that it was more of a press lift, and
Yes.
that it was not reviewed, not called, not anything. They got credit for it.
Yeah, it's I don't know how that can happen, but I certainly, Chris Kinnear knows, as do other people, and it just simply wasn't called. They got away with it. What can I say? But interestingly, I felt that the Georgian couple, the winners, they had some shaky lifts, right? And one of them, they were dinged on one of them in the free, but I actually thought two of their lifts probably were a bit shaky. And it goes to show you that I think sometimes people take lifts for granted in the pairs event, and everyone's always saying, "Oh, can they do the side by side jumps?" Well, that's fine, but pairs is really lifts. Lifts is the most critical part of a pair program. What the Georgians did have was lovely throws. I very elegant throws. They're an elegant couple. Their lifts were a little shaky, and they got good marks. I think they got a total of 217.24. And I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Japanese world champions got 219.15 in France. So the Georgians, got very strong marks, despite a couple of glitches, I think, in their lifts. And interestingly enough, it was again on the Lasso lift. He kind of saved it. But I mean, I've always heard the Lasso lift is very difficult for pairs.
Yeah. I don't know how he saved it. I got nervous just watching it. I'm like, how is he managing to keep her up? But then I was kind of surprised in protocols too that it was a very slight negative GOE. I thought it would have gotten a little bit more.
Right, and I think the second two of the three lifts I thought might have gotten negative GOE, but only one did. So maybe it was a little generous judging on that. The other thing to remember is that the Georgian skaters are really on the march, and they, could be pretty solid in the team event at the upcoming games.
Yeah, we've kind of been talking about that behind the scenes here and on the episodes, that they're making a case for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you have Igadza, you have Gubanova, Davis, and Schmolkin, and those are solid competitors there. So, they're a small country but mighty. But the Italians were solid. They won the silver here. They had some solid lifts, but I guess their issue is a little bit more the throws. But they're the Italian champions, and they're certainly favored to take one of those spots at the Olympics in Italy. But again, not honestly a inspiring pairs competition is what I'll say.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I don't want us to get through pairs without mentioning a pretty exceptional short program from Katie McBeath and Daniel Parkman of the U.S.
Yes, that is absolutely true. I don't know. It's unfortunate they were not able to really carry that energy over to the free skate, but it was a very good, and it got them some good marks. It was a very, very good short. One probably the best I've seen them skate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's coming from France. I mean, they had back-to-back Grand Prix events, so I was quite surprised to see him skate so well in the short. Unfortunately, that free skate that she slips in that entrance of the pair spin, and then they had other other mistakes as well too that dropped them down to 7th overall. Because here I thought, okay, they may have another 4th place finish at a Grand Prix.
That would have been sensational. But they still had, they had a solid Grand Prix season. I mean, they're not, he's not a citizen. They're not in the mix for the Olympic Games, but there's so much else they can do. People forget, U.S. is going to have 3 spots at the World Championships, right? And certainly, I could see them winning a medal, perhaps at 4 continents. So there's still so much out there that isn't the Olympics. And I remember not too long ago, I talked to Katie, and she said, "No, Daniil is not going to. We're not in the citizenship hunt, but we know that, and we're very happy to move forward without the Olympics right now, and prove ourselves in other events."
The other thing I wanted to point out is Jixuan Zhang and Yihang Huang, who earned China the spot at the Road to Milano Olympic qualifying event, finished 4th in this event. This is their Grand Prix debut. They are the 2024 Junior Grand Prix final champions. And again, for being a young team coming into the senior ranks in a very critical year for teams duking it out to get an Olympic spot, that's a very respectable position to be in.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I still don't think, unless something goes really awry with Shui and Han, I see the Chinese Federation sticking with them for the games, but can't take anything away from this young team.
No, not at all.
So, and I'm glad that, China's a little bit of a mystery to me, because it kind of tries to, amp itself up during the Olympic season, but sort of back off
the rest of the time
after. And, it's kind of hard to do that because you got to keep building. So hopefully this young team, we're going to see them out there consistently, the next quad.
Yeah. Skating relies, I think, a lot on momentum. And so when you disappear for a couple of seasons, or you don't skate that much or compete that much internationally, people forget that you're even there. So.
Oh, definitely. It's easy to forget. Very, very easy.
Last thing to mention, Lucrezia Beccari, Matteo Garisse withdrew after the short program because Lucrezia suffered an injury. And so hopefully she's on the mend already.
Right.
But let's move on to dance. Last week we started our podcast with dance, and it led to a very long conversation. Let's see what happens with this week's podcast.
Well, I have to start it off by saying kind of a mea culpa. My predictions and my crappy record is really intact, because the last time I was on your podcast, I talked about how impressed I was with Green and Parsons and how fired up they were this season and how I thought they were really going to come out strong. And unfortunately, I was wrong. And, they've had a bit of a hard time. And it continued here, unfortunately. They had a mishap in the rhythm dance, and then after coming out for the warm-up, they had to withdraw from the free dance. So unfortunately for them, they lost some ground here. And, I don't know. It's a sad thing for me, because I've always thought that they were exceptional skaters, and I always enjoyed the bulk of their programs. So I think that they're going to have to regroup, as we all know.
So in this competition, in the ice dance event, gold went to Madison Chalk and Evan Bates of the U.S. Silver went to Emilia Zingis and Vadim Kolesnik of the U.S. And bronze went to Evgenia Lopareva and Jeffrey Brosseau of France. I'll throw out my initial thoughts on Madison and Evan's program, both of them. Their rhythm dance did seem a bit tentative to me, but no, when you consider they haven't competed yet this season, they didn't do a Challenger Series event, it's not uncommon for a team to come out and get their program out there. And that's kind of what this seemed to me, is they skated it. It was good. It isn't what it's going to end up being by the time we get to later in the season, but it was a start for the season in their first time out. Their free dance, I thought, was better. They had more speed. I think by the time we see this program a little bit later in the season, it's going to be fire, to be honest. I think it's going to be a good program for them. I'm not sure about the skirt. The skirt is very, very long, and it could be a little bit distracting. But, Lynn, I'm interested in what you have to say.
Okay. First of all, I hate the rhythm dance genre of 90s hits with the force of 1,000 suns. I think that it is extremely unfortunate. So I'll have to get that out of the way first.
Okay, that's fair. Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
In terms of Chalk and Bates, going with the Lenny Kravitz, I think that that was the smartest choice that they could have made. Because although this music is from the 90s, certainly American Woman is not, originally a 90s hit. And I thought that that was a very, very smart choice for them as mature ice dancers. So I was thrilled about that. She had a slight slip. They, certainly this time of season, they need to work on the speed, but they elected not to do a challenger. And can't tell this couple who has been competing for 14 seasons and has won the last 3 world titles, oh, here I am, I'm nobody. I think you should have done a challenger, right?
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're doing. Their team knows what they're doing. And, they elected not to do a challenger. So I think that they're having kind of their traditional, bit slower start. Let's remember that last season they lost Skate America, okay? Their home Grand Prix, right? So I thought that the rhythm dance, I couldn't have been more pleased with that. I thought it was a good choice from them, and I think it's going to grow. And I think Chalk and Bates kind of always grow their programs. In terms of the free dance, I initially thought, wow, I love that she's got the skirt. I'm concerned that, it could get in the way and cause a little bit of an error. But that risk factor is exciting, right? And she really knows how to work it. I think that probably a lot of training was put into her learning how to, quote unquote, work that skirt. And it adds another dimension to the program. It makes them unique. And, again, I thought that the program went really well and will only grow in intensity. It's really intensity and drama that it needs, and of course speed.
Yeah.
But for a debut of that program, I thought it was great. The only reason people are being so critical, I think, is because the French had a debut of their free dance last weekend that kind of garnered them about 10 more points than Chalk and Bates.
They also have had
And you
more
can't-
time to work on their programs.
Well, I mean, then again, Chalk and Bates have had 14 years of togetherness, whilst Césarin and Baudrey are a new couple, right? So there's things you can say about that. But I think, first of all, that was in France. So I think you got to take that down 5-6 points, right? And then you got to look at the fact that that program was wonderful, I thought, that the French did last weekend. It was not a new concept, right? It was a program that Césarin would have done with Papadakis, and Laurence was slotted in there. And I think that that's fine, because those programs have really worked for him, right? They've won him world titles, Olympic gold, etc. Plus, they really didn't have time to come up with a unique style, that would, establish them as this couple with a different style. But I think it's going to be a horse race, and you've got two couples and two free dances that could not be more different. And you've got a very kind of subtle, flowing, almost lyrical free dance versus a fiery, intense free dance that is highlighted, as often is the case, by lifts. So I couldn't be more interested in watching how this progresses.
Yeah, I agree. Maddie and Evan have not done a challenger event since the 2021-22 season.
That's correct.
So they
yeah.
have not been doing a challenger series event. Not every team feels the need to do it. For some reason, after that Olympic season, they decided we're going to try something different. They haven't done challengers. It seems to work for them. It's worked for them for the last few years. This is how they prefer to go into the season, and I think, you know what? We have to trust that. Let's see how things unfold going forward.
Absolutely. I mean, they've won the last 3 world titles, and you have to trust that. But I think that this is going to be their fiercest challenge yet, because it's a little shocking how good Laurence and Guillaume already are. Now, the silver medalist, I mean, they just did themselves a world of good here.
Yes, they did.
Absolutely. And that is really a big story. Zingis and Kolesnik. And, my God, they broke 80 in their rhythm dance. It took, Carrera and Ponomarenko they only broke 80 like last season, right? And their free dance to the Prokofiev version of Romeo and Juliet, because there's probably about 10 versions of it, right?
Yes, there are.
Yep.
Was just exceptionally clean, if that makes any sense. Their feet, their movements, just very clean. Great job of choreography again by Benoit. I felt like Benoit was sort of out of his comfort zone on this one because he's generally a quite an avant-garde, shall we say, French choreographer. And this time, I guess, Igor rubbed off on him and he came up with something that's really quite classical. Lovely, lovely dance spin and just a superb outing. New personal best. I think it was 124.84. Could not have been more impressive. And really are really through there, really rose, in the sort of in the betting for that for one of those 3 ice dance spots.
Absolutely.
So they just a tremendous competition for them. Can't say enough.
Yeah, Vadim did get his citizenship. I think it was early last month. And
he did.
Yeah, Vadim did get his citizenship. And let's not forget that Emilia Zingis has not been ice dancing her whole life. This is still new. She was a single skater before they started skating together. And this is a partnership that works for me.
Yeah, she's maybe she had the heart of an ice dancer the whole time because I would say that she looks like an ice dancer
Definitely
now.
looks like an ice dancer now.
She's got the elements, and I was extremely impressed with them, and I was extremely impressed with their program, especially their free dance, and they had a good solid rhythm dance. So that was a big story coming out of Cup of China. Yeah. And, the second French, La Parova, I thought they skated in her partner. I thought they skated well. I mean, they're the kind of team that you either really like them or you kind of don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're a little quirky in that French fashion. I enjoy them. Not everyone does.
I enjoy them also. I like that they bring different things to the table, and I like the quirk. I like that part of them. I like that they're skating to Bjork. I think it's fantastic. This is such a strange season for them, I guess, in particular with Guillaume coming back, and France has 2 spots, and it's going to be what it is.
Well, at least France has 2 spots.
Yeah.
So it's not like China with the 1 pair spot. Yeah. The other notable thing is Smart and Deke, they just could not overcome the misstep, in the rhythm dance to get onto the podium, I don't think. But I thought that I personally liked that rhythm dance. I thought it suited them, and I think it's going to be one of the better rhythm dances of the season. What did you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's not one of those, it's a mature 90s rhythm dance that suits them well. It's George Michael and Robbie Williams. It's not a Backstreet Boys that kind of comes off as a cheesy rhythm dance. And so I think it'll suit them well this season. They just gotta, fix it up a little bit and not make any mistakes on it, because then they could get on the podium if they've got 2 good skates. And that free dance, which is Dune Part 2, is just as good as Dune Part 1, in my opinion.
I like the free dance a lot.
It is.
I'm glad that they went in this direction. When I first heard that they were doing it, I thought maybe it was a rumor, and all I could think is, no, I hope they do it, because in ice dance there is such a strangle around the neck about reusing programs, but taking this to a part 2 and doing some different things with it, I think is something I'd like to see more of in ice dance, if possible.
Yeah, I would probably disagree a little bit. I think that half the judges are not going to realize that it's a new program, and it might hurt them slightly. Because in ice dance, you're really expected to come up with something new every
Lynn,
season. Now you have couples like, I guess, the Canadians, who are bringing back something from years ago, and there's been a little more of a break. But I don't know. Everything changes.
I have a question, Lynn. Who came up with this ridiculous rule that the ice dancers can't reuse a program?
I don't think it's a rule.
It feels like it is.
It's a rule. It's a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Because
why should dance be
ice dance because ice dance, more than the other disciplines, is seen as a creative discipline where you're exploring.
Okay.
Huge part of it is like you're exploring different music genres. You're pushing yourself. Look at Chalk and Bass. They really try to reinvent themselves every season. I don't know. I mean, I'm so old. I remember when the Duchesnays did Missing 1 and Missing 2. And, Missing 2 did not capture the excitement that Missing 1 did. And I just wonder if Dune will recapture. It was very exciting in Boston when you saw that, and you saw her come out, and that wonderful costume that was designed by Madison Chalk. But I could be wrong. I could be dead wrong, because the last couple of seasons, they started their partnership out slow, but they've been improving with leaps and bounds. So
yeah, I like that they're doing Dune Part 2.
Okay.
I think that I really enjoyed Dune Part 1, but to see this version, I can see the different things that they're doing with it versus what we got last year. And I hope that the judges will enlighten themselves to it.
Right.
That's all we can do. And I appreciate you saying, because ice dancers are looked at as, the more creative discipline. And I can buy into that a little bit. I just feel like sometimes ice dance gets pushed to be the testing ground for how do we bring more spectators or viewers to the sport of figure skating, which is what I think some of this playing around with 90s and 80s genres of music is kind of meant to do.
No question about that. But on the other hand, when you're doing 6 or 7 quads in a program, or even 3 or 4, it's harder to push yourself in a, artistic fashion than it would be for, ice dancers. So they're different. It's different emphasis in ice dance. And why we love it so much.
Yeah.
It's a different, it's really a sport in and of itself.
It is. And that's a conversation for another day, because I could go on and on and on about all the nuances and things that I love about ice dance and why it's my favorite discipline. And that, like Absolutely. I said, is for another podcast.
Well, okay then. So that's about a wrap, I think, on Capellazzi.
Almost. We got 1 or 2 more things we want to mention. One, Caroline Green, Michael Parsons, we did talk about them. We didn't mention they had to withdraw after the free dance. And 2,
well, actually, they had to withdraw after the free dance warm-up.
After the free dance warm-up.
The 6-minute, the 5-minute, whatever warm-up.
Yeah, so they unfortunately had to withdraw after the 5-minute warm-up. And then, Lynn, did you happen to notice the strange missile that was in the Kiss and Cry with Ren and Jing?
I did notice it. I honestly didn't give it too much thought. What is the story on that?
It has made the rounds on the internet. Like, as you can
Yes.
imagine, the figure skating Twitterverse, it has kind of blown up there. And I guess the ISU deemed it inappropriate and is investigating how it happened. Well, Lynn, thanks so much for joining us for this episode of This Week in Skating.
No problem. Anytime. Anytime.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of This Week in Skating. Remember, you can keep up with us throughout the week by visiting our website at www.thisweekinskating.com. Connect with us on social media for additional updates. You can find us on Twitter at This Week in Skating without the E's, or Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at This Week in Skating. You got a burning question or feedback for Gina, Daphne, or Matteo? Reach out to us via social media or drop us an email at thisweekinskating@gmail.com. And if you're really enjoying the show and want to support us further, consider joining our Patreon community at patreon.com/thisweekinskating. Until next time, have a nice week.